Well, hello there, YouTube. It's Petey Two Finger, and I wanted to go through guitars. So when I was a kid, in the storage area, there was a Gibson ES335. It was a 1965 in the case queen. My dad bought this guitar when the Beatles broke. Their first year after they were married, they lived in a home for boys, and the Beatles broke. And my dad and his buddies did a Beatles gig for Halloween. They dressed up like the Beatles. My dad bought this guitar, used it once, and it sat in the case for the. So I used to go into this storage unit. It was underneath the stairs in the downstairs office. You could open up this little hatch and go under the stairs, and there was a little storage spot, and this guitar case was in there. And I used to open it up and look at it and smell it and fantasize. And I don't think I ever took it out of the case and played it or touched it because it was my dad's. And then my dad got sick, and my older brother, let's just say that guitar went up his nose. And we'll get back to that because that story comes back around and has a little bit of a resolution later. My older brother had an acoustic. We had seen this movie called Burt Reynolds' ABC movie of the week, Deliverance, and there's a scene where they're playing dueling, ding, 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 and I had commandeered my brother's acoustic. It wasn't the Seagull. He ended up later on buying this Seagull. I don't remember what it was. It was just a generic junker acoustic. It probably was I don't think it was a 3/4 size. It was a smaller size acoustic guitar. And I would go out by this tree 3/4 of the way down our lawn. We had this giant tree. We lived on this end lot. We had a huge triangular lot, grass, really nice lawn. And I would sit under that tree playing where no one could hear me. So I got good enough at playing this, and I fell in love with playing guitar. There was a Mel Bay chord book. I taught myself cowboy chords so I could play E, A, D, C, and G and fake it. So I had made up my mind that this is something I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I was going to become a great guitar player. And this is something that my brother, they had bought him an electric, and he waned interest in it. And my family, you'll see me with the image of a number 2 often. And mainly, psychologically, this is my magic number. It's because I'm second born. It's because I will never be number 1. That was something that was for my older brother. And to remind me of what I'm up against. Later on, I lost 2 of my fingers, and I only play with 2. And the guitar player that I was playing bass for in this cover band named me Two Finger Mother Effer, and that stuck. So I use this to it's an outer reference to Petey Two Finger. My middle name is Peter on my birth certificate, and but the inner reference, the significance for me, really doesn't have anything to do with that accident. It's the lot I was given in life, which is this abusive childhood, where I'm left with self-esteem issues and ad nauseum. Now, ultimately, I've done my best to try and forgive the person who I suffered under, the person who abused me. And I've come to terms with that stuff, and I no longer have addiction issues. For a long time I ran away from that pain with alcohol and drugs, and I no longer do that anymore. And I've also kind of accomplished my goals musically, so I'm in a pretty good place now, thanks to the instrument. The music really did save me in a lot of sense. I mean, yeah, my wife, yes, definitely, but music for me has been something really unbelievably significant in my life. And there's an extreme lack of recognition or even the ability to talk about any of that around the people that supposedly love me. They don't acknowledge it. I'm not allowed to talk about it. It's something I'm supposed to be ashamed of. More recently, it seems like my mother-in-law has kind of changed on that. She's a little bit more tolerant. We went over there and played a set for her. I learned a bunch of 50s music instrumentals, and we played stuff that she would have been familiar with from her childhood, and she really enjoyed that. And it meant a lot to her. So that was something that I cooked up that ended up working out better than I could have hoped for. Because I just want people to be comfortable with who I really am, and that's who I am. I'm a guitar player, you know. So my first guitar, I was at this Baptist school, Southern Baptist, so I was really strict, and I had already had the accident. I had just played dueling banjo for my father. It was in the basement, and I played this over and over while he's reading the paper in front of the TV. For the 400th time I played, he puts the paper down and says, "Give me that thing." He took it, he tuned it a little, and then he played this like unbelievable finger-picking concerto he played for me, and then he immediately just handed the guitar back, picked his paper up. This is kind of how my family was. So, losing my fingertips, it shattered my dream, and for a long time I had to heal up, and then there was this day that I kept putting off. Finally I sat down on the edge of the bed with that acoustic, and I had to see, okay, where are we at with this thing? Can I move forward? And I realized if I tuned it a little different, I could fake my way through those cowboy chords that I had learned and try this new method of tuning the guitar, where you tune your B string to a C, you tune it up a half a step, and here we are. Years later, I can upload videos, and people don't know that I'm missing my fingertips. So Jason M sold me his garbage pick. He told me, he said, "This thing's a piece of junk," and I said, "Well, I want it anyway." And the neck was wobbly, the screw holes were stripped out, and the Bigsby was actually a Jigsby. And this isn't the same guitar. I've got two different, like, okay, these pickup rings and this pickup style looks more accurate than this. I think this was just a rectangular piece on here, but you get the picture. And I did not have that guitar for very long. What had happened, we had these neighbors that lived a couple blocks away, and the guy rang the bell, "Hey, I found Jesus," and he gave me a box full of Electro-Harmonix guitar pedals, big fat leather fatty straps like for a bass, and then cables, like really nice 50-foot long cables. And I got all Electro-Harmonix. I had a big muff, a little muff, a Screaming Tree treble booster, a small stone phase shifter, all this stuff. And so I put all that together with HC adapter, and I had a pedal board. And back in '83, nobody had that. If anybody had a pedal, they would have like one pedal with a battery in it. So I hooked up a color changing wheel lamp, and I put switches in it on the motor and on the lights, a foot switch operated, and then I had a strobe, and I had speakers all over my room connected to this boom box, and I would play Pink Floyd. And I learned, the first thing I learned was rewinding the Wall album. There's a song called "In the Flesh," and I could play that on this guitar. And then I learned the solos from the Animals album, and I would have people over, "Hey, I can play guitar," and I would have these kids in my room, and I would have this light show and these pedals, and I, could play like pretty close to note for note, except for some of the faster runs. I would do a slide or throw sand in people's eyes. So one of the guys that I had over to do this rock concert in my bedroom, his name was Rob G. He sold me. He was like, "Oh, dude, I'm going to sell you my guitar." So I said, well, I paid $5 for this. How much? He said $15. He sold me this Memphis Les Paul copy, and it looked a lot like this. It had these knobs here. I've got clearer images, but this one has different style knobs. This is pretty much what I had. It was really heavy. It was the pickups didn't have the covers on them. Looked like this, and they had screws, and they failed. The pickups stopped functioning on those, and I did somehow I remember eventually replacing. I think I swapped them because this one went out and I moved this one down there. But eventually, someone came over and picked that guitar up by the strap, and the strap came off and it cracked the back of the head and the neck. In the neck pocket, there was a huge crack, and that guitar, the neck just bananaed out, and it was unplayable. But this was my dream guitar. I was watching. I had met this guy who wanted to be a singer, and his parents were cool. We used to go to their house and drink beers and watch Song Remains the Same, Led Zeppelin over and over. So I was a Les Paul guy. I love Jimmy Page. Well, I really love Dave Gilmour. But I had this Les Paul, and I had all those pedals. I had purchased a flanger. The guy who cracked the neck gave me $75 cash, and I bought a DoD flanger with that. And then I got the Echo Box. DoD came out with the PDS line. I had a PDS 1001. So yeah, I was hot shit back then. I couldn't play, but I had all these. I had a mixer, so I would run parallel effects, and I built another player a parallel board, totally from scratch with the plywood and we mounted everything, did the power supply. It was a huge job. So a little while later, we had started this band. I had my Les Paul copy. We had a couple of get-togethers with the band. Danny had an amp that he would sing into with a microphone, tube amp that had the spring reverb that was so shrill. Oh, it sounded terrible, feeding back. And they had immediately got another guitar player, Mike. This guy's a ghost hunter now. He's a nut job. Mike was able to play, and he had his finger. So they had another guy that was like the bass player that lived there, and he was not talented in the way that I am. I can't believe I was better than him with two fingers. But yeah, I took his place, and my brother got married. I went to the wedding. In my tux, they said they were really worried about me because I was smoking a lot of weed and I was getting in a lot of trouble, and I was going to be the best man. It was a big deal at this church in Downers Grove, and so I showed up an hour early to make sure I'd be there, and I went down and smoked my little pipe or whatever, and then I'm like, okay, I'm high, what do I do now? I went to the guitar store, and a guy came in. I was the only one in there. I'm looking at the pedals. A guy comes in, and he's got this bass. It's a Japanese P-bass copy that's just a junker, and then he had a what do you call that, Swedish Hagstrom 6-string. And he's like, how much will you give me these? And the guy's like, I wouldn't give you $10 for them. I said, I'll give you 10. And the guy was like, not at my store, you don't. So we went outside, and I'm like, here's my $10. And he's like, no, he only gave me the bass. And I was like, man. And that was the beginning of me setting out trying to get by purchasing a 6 and a 4, and having that not happen for me. This thing didn't have the ashtray on it. It was beat, and the grub screws were like razors, so I used to hack my hand up. Plus, the neck was warped. So I played some parties with that bass, and I remember it had flat wound strings on it. I put a set of round wounds on it, and then shortly after that, I was working, and at Christmas we were going to get a bunch of extra money. You would get this bonus check, and then there was another check for your dental insurance. And my mom was still taking care of my dental needs, so I was going to have a significant amount of money, and I went to this place called John's Hidden Music. He had this Washburn with a Wonder Bar, a Midnight Blue, a GV5 Washburn for $149 used, hanging up on the rack. And then he had a unicorn bass. And I made up my mind, I'm going to have enough. I'm going to get the Washburn 6-string and I'm going to get the unicorn. This way I can play in the band and have a real instrument. And then I can come home and keep working on the guitar. So this was like on a weekend. And then I went in there on Wednesday and I brought my buddy to show him these guitars I was going to buy because I was getting the money on Friday. Well, that Thursday, that kid called me up, dude, come on over, bring weed. And I come over there, and he had his mom drive him down, and he bought my guitar. So this guy, his name is J.C. Mitchell, and I have an unbelievable grudge against this guy. I used to take this guitar. He had a PV half stack with a Boss American Metal, and he would go, if he would go in the bathroom and I was at his house, I would turn everything all the way up on 11. I would hold the guitar by the whammy bar and I would hit the power switch on the stack and go and do a Steve Vai and go ring with the whammy bar, and boy, that would make quite a racket. So he claimed that guitar, he had some friends stay with him and they were into crystal meth, and they pawned that guitar. But yeah, that was the one that got away. I did get the unicorn and I still have it. I love my unicorn. It's never going anywhere. If I had a dime for every person who begged me to give them that guitar, I want to learn. My daughter needs to learn how to play bass. Do you have any extra basses? Like, what about that white one you used to play? Oh, you want my unicorn, huh? Here's one. And then I would say something very rude. So yeah, I still have my unicorn. I took it over there, and John reached over and grabbed his. He had the guitar. He's like, this thing made me a lot of money. And I was like shaking. I was like, dude, can you will this to me? Like, I need to contact him again because I want to get it. He's older than me, and I want that guitar. I want that guitar. I'm gonna go down there and talk to him about it again. John's Hidden Music. And if you're if you're in Chicago and you need a setup, that's where you want to go. He charged me $20 to set up my Strat, and he fully did a setup on it. So yeah, that's the unicorn. The pickups both died in that. I replaced them with different things, but and I've replaced the potentiometers, but it's all original other than that. And I love that instrument. I love it. So coming into the 90s, my coworker knew that I had this passion, and he's like, I'm going to sell you this bass. He's like $300. And so he sold me this white Charvel. This is the instrument I played in front of more people than anything else. Played it for 3 years at a church and then in all these bars in the serious bar band that I was in. Well, I was in 2 serious, like really good bands. And then a couple other bands that were really good that just didn't do anything, but came with a tweed case, a really quality boom stand, a quality guitar stand, cables, and 2 Arion pedals, an Arion bass EQ and an Arion bass distortion. And I still have the bass EQ. The distortion kind of fell apart. They're plastic pedals, but I absolutely love this instrument. That's my Charvel. It's an awesome bass. It really is a great bass. And if I ever were to play bass again, you'd see me with that bass in my hand. So later on, 5 years after J.C. Mitchell fucked me, excuse me, I shouldn't say that, I got this American Standard Strat, which there's... Can we... That's better. Here is Anti-Leaf. It's yeah. And that's Adrian Ballou, who signed the front and the back. My younger brother Garbage picked a Cort 45, and this is the guitar that I've written more music on than anything else. It's my most beloved instrument. I'm not crazy about it's got kind of a thick neck, but man, I love this guitar. I absolutely love it. It's had a bunch of different pickups in it, and I replaced the potentiometers, and I've tried a few different types of tuners in it. Right now, it's got something that looks more like what it had. I had these Argent Grover locking tuners. These are Epiphone, or they're Grovers. These is what would be on a Epiphone Les Paul. But yeah, I really love this guitar. I really love it. I had the professionally set up, and ever since then I've loved it even more because it needed to be tweaked, and I could never get the intonation right on it for some reason. I had been looking for a Sustainiac guitar, and we picked this one up. It was 2 1/4 with a hard shell case. The 5-way switch needed to be replaced. I have no idea why the guy sold it to me for that price. It's got a Floyd with a locking nut. This is the Ferrari of guitars in my collection. This guitar is such a high performance guitar, and it's got the Sustainiac. I absolutely love. This is like my favorite guitar. I really love this Fernandez. I love it so much I bought a backup, which is this Strat that has my GK on it that I use for recording now. This is a really good Strat copy, and the body shape is a little bit different. Absolutely high quality guitar. As far as putting this up against an American, it's right up there with it. And I paid $250 for that guitar. The Spirit, something I'm going to be playing again. I love this guitar. I once you get used to the feel of this guitar, I've replaced the pickups. It's got Seymour or DiMarzio Super Distortion clones, and then some kind of a goofy mini humbucker in the middle that it reduces the volume so much when you put the middle pickup on, but. I did the bearing modification to this, and I'm going to do the lighter spring, which costs $15. But we had been in a resale store, and they had a Korg Poly 800, which I know about this synth. My old partner, the guy that had a recording studio, and I fashioned my home recording studio off of what he had. We both had Tascam 48s, half-inch reel-to-reel 8-channel. 8-track recording decks. They're huge, super expensive and difficult to maintain, but he had this Korg Poly 800 that was like his flagship synth, and he borrowed it to me, and I really didn't. I mean, it has a digital memory in it, and it's an analog synth, so it combines the best of both worlds. And I saw this synth, and it was $6, so we bought it. I cleaned it up, replaced the CMOS battery, put the sound programs in it, because you have to do it with a cassette or a CD-ROM. They give you a data pack, which is like a 45-second clip that sounds like a fax modem booting up, and that's the sounds. And if the battery dies, the sounds go away. So I burnt that data to a CD and prepared everything, cleaned it, replaced the battery, and put it up for sale for $250. And immediately I put hybrid analog digital synth. Immediately there was a young guy here that gave me the $250 cash, and he was like, he couldn't believe he was getting it at that good of a deal, and I couldn't believe I was robbing him. So I took $100 of our money. This was when you could get one of these shipped to your door for $350, and now they're like $450. But people, they say they don't like these pickups and that the guitar is not really the quality that the old Steinbergers were. I absolutely love my Spirit. It takes a little getting used to, but man, I love that guitar. So I'm planning on, I've been going through my Strat phase at some point. If I want to make more aggressive music or go with the humbuckers, I've got that Fernandez with the sustaining hick, and I've got the Spirit, and I have the bootlegger Spade, which this was to make up for that 335. Years, many years after my mom died too, my brother had contacted the Social Security office, and there was some money in my father's name. He didn't tell anybody, but he got lawyers and then paid himself an extra cut and divvied it up with everybody else, including two people that weren't in my family when my dad died. One of them is the ex-wife of a person who was legally in my family. So it's like, you really going to give our money to these people? Not cool. But I guess that was his choice. I would have let them know. I would have said, look, I've got this money. Considering the dude drives a Rivian and they have a giant mansion and he's loaded, I don't think he would have wanted the $1,000 that would have been that I needed. So I had seen these Spade guitars and I wanted one because I have this Cork 45 and I have the other headless, the Steinberger, and I ordered it. I talked to the guy. He's made in the United States and everything. The guitar is set up and you don't have to worry about it. And it came and it was completely unplayable. I took it to a guy who sweet talked me and then charged me $225. He claimed that he had to re-glue all he did was file the nut. So, and I had to take it around all these places. No one would work on it because I hadn't seen one before. So it left such a bad taste in my mouth. I've never played that guitar, and I mean to, and I'm gonna. I have taken it out and played it here at home. So this is one that I'm sitting on. That again, I have. It's a little bit of a different guitar, but I like that. I like getting used to it and then using them for what they're good at doing. So I believe I did replace the pickups in that guitar and the potentiometers, and it has this really good locking tremolo system on it. So it's a phenomenal guitar, the bootlegger Spade. But when you've got the Cork 45 and you've got I've got two other guitars that don't have that stigma, that bad taste in my mouth. So it's something I'm going to have to force myself into using. And that day is coming. So I've got the semi-hollow body Cozart that I stripped down and replaced everything on. It's got a Wilkinson tremolo. This was a gift. I painted this in black in here. This was a gift from a guy who we used to be friends. And I asked him for a favor, and he refused to do this really tiny favor for me, and then flipped out and cursed me out. And we're no longer really friends anymore. But he was a guy that I was friends with for a long time, and then he, for some reason, he refused to help me out. The only time I ever asked him to do something that would take him literally 2 minutes to do, wouldn't cost him a cent, and would have helped me out exponentially. So this is another one that I've got this thing, and it's like it's got a stink to it. This was right when I got it. I've completely rebuilt it. It doesn't look like this anymore. It's got a different pick guard, different pickups, different knobs, different tremolo, different tuners, and a nut. And it does have a completely different. It's got a different. It's Stratty, but it's semi-hollow, so it's got that going for it. Here I am playing that. This is halfway through, or no, yeah, this is halfway through. I have tried a bunch of different knobs on this, and I've got some much cooler looking knobs on it now. And again, this is blacked out, and I took it in to have it professionally set up. So it's not like the guy gifted it to me and I didn't take it seriously and replace everything and then have it set up. I did. He emailed me. He's like, "Do you still even have that?" And it's like, yeah, dude. You don't watch my videos. If you watch my uploads, you'd see me using it live. So I've done some refins. This is a Catacaster. It's an Eric Clapton thing. I've done these refinish jobs on these guitars. It's something I did. I've done like a half a dozen of them now. Here's a Rocky Strat that I did that I gifted to my daughter. Again, this video is going too long, and I didn't want to turn it into a huge thing. And we're not going to go over all of the guitars in my collection. This is what my American guitar looks like now. It's got graphite, and these are the stock pickups. They just got black covers, and I blacked it out, and I put a mirror guard after Baloo signed it. And then this is black paint. This is where the Roland double-sided tape from the GK2 ripped the finish, completely removed all of the paint down to the first layer of clear on the wood. I wish I would have known about that, and I would have just put the screw in it. But I used the double-sided tape like a moron, and it completely ruined the guitar. I cannot believe that. I must have really prepped it good, huh? You know, cleaned it with alcohol and then used a hairdryer on it. What an idiot. And I put a kill switch on there, and it's got a Telecaster fatty knob. PD 2 Fingers Custom Strat. This is like I built these Strat Squires that I rebuild, but man, this one it's a much better guitar. I love my Strats, the white Strat and the yellow Strat, and here we are back to the 335, the one that started it all. Thank you for joining me on this Guitar Talk, my collection. You guys hug your pets, and peace. So I've got a... Yeah, I know, it's still recording. I'm gonna... And then... Alright, aren't you glad you stuck around for that? Okay, you guys... Let me know what you think about my guitar collection. Again, I didn't include everything. What do you think about that? I mean, like, okay, yeah, there's this stuff where, like, I got burned and people breaking my guitars and stuff getting stolen. But then, like, I've had these other breaks where, like, I was gifted that Cozart. I found that Korg, and I was able to use my knowledge to turn that around into getting the Steinberger for cheap. So every time you're cursed, you can turn that around into a blessing. You know, that they talk about making lemonade. So that can be true. Ultimately, it's been a really long road for me and a mind-numbing. I know I say that all the time. My growth as a player has been so slow, it cannot be charted. I wish that I had better, a healthier self-esteem. I didn't have those issues going back to my abusive childhood. That's who I am, and this stuff has kept me going through the darkest parts of my life. And the parts in my life where I was not actively playing guitar, I was miserable. Something was missing, and when I picked it back up again, there I was. This is, unfortunately for me, I wish that I could just sit passively, go team, sports team, you know, McManamous, those Green Bay Chiefs. I can't. I don't comprehend that stuff. It doesn't make any sense to me. There's like what for me. It's just one thing, you know. It's guitar, which really isn't my strong suit. I don't think. If I would say that would be my strong suit, I would be able to shred, you know. And that's this mental illness that I have. So there's all types of guitar players in the world, and for a while there in the hair metal days, things got a little cockeyed, and it was just all about this stuff, you know. And I got to tell you, I knew some of those guys who could do that. I knew guys that could do it unbelievably well. There was two guys that I worked with that were like unbelievably talented. One young guy and one guy who went to California chasing his dream. Those guys, they couldn't write songs. And the fact that they were able to do that when they were that young made them egomaniacal, infantile, not attractive people to be around. Alcohol demon, temper, completely nuts, cocaine, you name it, you know. Like intolerable. Like you could not stand to be around these people. And I told my wife this story today. That's reminded me about this guitar stuff, and I turned it into a video. But that part of it that I left out, you know, there was a local guy who was like a legend, who was unbelievable. And one day, the local weed dealer that I was hanging around with was like, "Oh," his pager went off, and he said, "Boy, have I got a treat for you. You think you know how to play guitar? I'm going to take you to a real guitar player." And we went over there, and he had a silver Gibson Flying V and a silver Marshall Jubilee full stack. He had a Boss DS1 and a Lisa's Quadriverb, and he was all messed up. I mean, he lived in the corner of a basement of this beautiful mansion. His parents. He was in the corner of the basement. He had a mattress on the ground. He had a weight bench, and he had the Marshall stack. And he was like all hungover when we came in there, and we smoked a joint. And then my friend told him, "This kid thinks he knows how to play guitar," and I told him, "You were going to show him." And he played for me, and I could not believe it. I could not believe how good he was, and how, like, I had never been in the room with a Marshall stack with a guy who could handle that amount of power and play that cleanly. So it was like a revelation. And a couple of years later, I was at a house party that was a jam. And I was the resident bass player along with this drummer. All these guitar players came through, and then that guy showed up. He showed up at the end of the night, and no one would go on after him. So I played the rest of the night with me, him, and this drummer. And it was unbelievable. It was the best jam I had ever had in my life. He was so good. And we had like a thing going, you know. And the next morning, he called me at home. And I was like, why is this guy calling me? And it was almost like he proposed to me. He was like, "I want you to be my bass player." And I literally could not believe it. And I have 2 recordings which I've promised that guy I would never release them or anything. He was we worked together for a pretty short period of time. He ended up going nuts one time and getting kind of violent. He threatened me, and then he threw a bunch of my stuff. And it was because he became too intoxicated to play is what happened. It had nothing to do with me. I was producing this music we were recording with my equipment. And I had a compressor, a rack mount compressor. I had drum machines. I had EQs. I had, I knew what I was doing to at least make a decent sounding 4-track demo. But he got in a bunch of legal trouble and took off and rode his motorcycle with his girlfriend in the back of it to California to make it big. And years later, I would check in from time to time to see if I could find him, and I found a band that had his name listed, that he had played with them. So I contacted those guys, and they said, "Oh, we no longer, he's not with us anymore." And I came back again. I said, "Yeah, well, I was really close with this guy. I hope he's come a little ways with that since I knew him, because things got really, really bad at the end of it between him and I." And then they came back and said, "Oh yeah, well he punched out another guy in the band, and we had to fire him." So when I did connect with him again, he told me he was going to fly out here and live in our place for a week. And I was supposed to film him and set up a website for him. And I have children at the time. I had little kids. So the idea of having this guy who's violent, who has unbelievable, he was hinting to me that he's into meth now, that he smokes meth. So the idea to have a guy who's smoking methamphetamine, who's out of his mind, the alcohol demon, violent temper, come and live here for a week, and I'm supposed to learn HTML. So Needles didn't work out, and I have these 2 recordings, and they're really something else. I mean, this guy, we were, I remember we were playing Empty Spaces, Young Lust off The Wall, and then the Jonah off of Fatal Portrait, King Diamond. And he was playing those note for note, Andy LaRocque solos. So when I say this guy was good, and if he didn't do it note for note, the stuff he did was better. He was unbelievably talented guy. So that I gotta tell you, when we started recording, that type of thing affects you. And when they say that you're supposed to work with people who are better than you, I wish I could have continued down that, because it was never like that. I was always with a bunch of jokers, and it was because I have this low self-esteem, because I was abused from when I was a real little kid. And like I've mentioned, I've tried to rise above that, and I no longer struggle with these addiction issues. But it's a little bit late now, to be over that hump when you're coming up on 60. It would have been better if I would have had that confidence when I was 21, So it's important to helicopter those kids, make sure that people aren't fucking with them. That's important. That'll affect people And there's people that I've heard where it's a short thing that they go through, and it's if it's short, there might be less shame with it, and it's easy for them to talk about it or fess up to it. But it still messes. It still will completely. It'll stay with you. If it goes on for a long time, it all depends on who it is and how long it goes on for. And for me, it did go on. It was probably 4 years. So that's something that I carry around. That's an unbelievably heavy weight. I don't really like talking about it, but if you know who I am, if you've been here watching this shit, it should help to clue you in to some of the issues, some of the tendencies that I have, why I am who I am. And the only thing that was important to me was that if I was going to create a family, that I was going to break those chains, that I wasn't going to be violent, that I wasn't going to have my kids living in fear or having them coming out of this as damaged goods when they turn 18. And I did just that. And that to me was the most important thing in my life. Nothing else really mattered. I mean, the way that I was raised, I was pretty much convinced that the Russians were going to come, or there was going to be I had absolutely no hope, or would ever dream that I would be here, sitting here, coming up on 60 years old. And when you're parenting children, you need to make sure that they're not thinking those thoughts. It's not what you want to lay on a little kid. And all of that is on my folks. It's on my mom. All of it. So, with the the religious thing and all of that, not everybody is born with this faith. Okay, some people don't have the capacity for that. It's a genetic thing. They've discovered this now. So you should educate yourself about the worship gene, and if you're in this type of situation where people are judging you because you don't have this personal relationship with the Lord, I would highly advise you to educate yourself about the worship gene. And knowing that is enough. You don't need to email them links. Just knowing this should be enough to shine a little bit of light on what's really actually has been going on as far as reality. So I'm going to cut you guys loose. Maybe now it's easy for you to understand why I'm constantly setting goals and focusing on the future, is because I can't look back. It's nothing but anguish and suffering, and I also understand how many people had it so much worse than me. So it's basically like, get in line and have that understanding that you're not alone, and that other people have had it much, much worse. So that's the other part of that. But I try to balance myself with that. God gave rock and roll. What is that Kiss song? God gave rock and roll to us. How does that song go? God gave rock and roll. I heard that Trump is argent. God gave rock and roll to you. Put it in the soul of everyone. God gave rock and roll to you, saved rock and roll for everyone. Love your friend and love your neighbor. Love your life and love your labor. No, it's never too late to change your mind. Don't step on snails, don't climb in trees. Love Cliff Richard, but please don't tease. It's never too late to change your mind. God gave rock and roll to you. If you want to be a singer or play guitar, man, you got to sweat or you won't go far. Because it's never too late to work 9 to 5. And if you're wrong, and you'll never be old, music can make your dreams unfold. How good it feels to be alive.